Hello, this is Kiki Dickinson with Building Healthier Community. I'm really excited to have Rihanna here today, and she's going to speak on a family's journey raising two young children with disabilities, autism, and a rare genetic disorder. And we should have also titled it "And a Newborn." So
Yeah.
she'll be having the newborn in the background. So if you want to why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and then about your family?
Yeah, so I'm just a stay-at-home mom. I mean, I shouldn't say I'm just
Not
a stay-at-home mom.
just.
There's so much that goes into that. It's such a loaded thing when you're not just a mom, you're also a caretaker. But
Yes.
I am a stay-at-home mom. I used to be in upper management with retail, so left that when I decided to have kids.
Okay.
My oldest son is Otto. He has level one autism and sensory
Okay.
processing
Sensory
disorder.
processors.
And then
Then
I've got my middle son, Klaus. And he has a rare genetic disorder. He's like one of 300-ish people in the world. He has
Wow.
SLC 6A1 is what it's called. And then we're pretty sure he's also on the spectrum, but with his developmental delays, me and we're seeing the same doctor that we saw for Otto's diagnosis. We just opted to hold off on getting an official on the paper until we know developmentally where things land.
So
And then,
with his genetic disorder, um, is it often kids have autism with that
yep,
diagnosis? Is that
autism and ADHD is super common with it. So
okay?
where
Okay.
they
Since
land is a
yeah,
spectrum, just like
okay,
regularly with this just having the autism is a spectrum.
right,
So
right. Well, since
then
we're talking about your middle son, Klaus, with who has a genetic disorder and likely autism, why don't you just tell a little bit more about all the things that can are involved right now with him, I guess. And that could be a whole hour, but we'll just,
I know I'm like, man, where do you want me to start? Such a loaded question. Well, currently, I mean, what we're like, as in what we're working on, where he's at,
I think
is that
just about like the feeding, like things that the kids like him often have, and also that it's such a range of abilities, right? So
yeah.
kind of walking that path.
Yeah, so with his genetic disorder, it's not like some of the other disorders that you see where, if a child's diagnosed with it, they're gonna probably have this X mobility, this milestone will come at this point. It's like such a range. So right now he's 2.5 and we're working, he's almost walking. He's taking independent steps now,
That's
which
so
I know
exciting.
you're so
So
I
exciting.
know you're invested in this journey just as much as I
Yes.
am. So
Right. Well, and
yeah.
the interesting for everyone at home is he had a stander in the living room like 6 months ago,
6 months
8 months
ago.
ago. It's like he was not the progress has been really quick,
Yes.
and that's hard I mean it's a blessing for you guys and exciting, but as the families that are listening know it's hard not to know what to expect, right? I mean, and then now you're really overjoyed, but I think walking that road of of not knowing.
Yeah, because I mean, really, some of the with his genetic disorder, some of the kids were walking at a normal rate. Some of them don't walk. Some of them have lost mobility. Food can be anywhere from following the normal milestones to when I asked the family support group of, parents who also have children with this genetic disorder. Some of them didn't eat solids until 6 years old. So, I mean, the
And
fact
some
that
have G
we're,
tubes then, right? Some have G
yep, some
tubes.
of them do have G tubes, so they can't even, orally intake anything. So,
Right. And
And
where's
then
Klaus at
talking
right
is
now?
the same thing. All of it is, and
Such a
sleep.
range.
Yeah, and sleep is another thing that, because you asked what typically the like hard points are, the struggles
Oh,
for these
right.
kids
Yes.
are. So sleeping, eating, mostly like GI issues is very common, sleep issues, and then developmental delays, and that's includes gross motor. So right
Right.
now, Klaus is still taking bottles, so he's on strictly formula through a bottle, which I'm fine with because last October we had a scare where we were talking possible G tube. So
Right.
the fact that
Right.
we've been able to avoid that even after that hospital stay has been great. And then walking, like I said, we're getting there. We're pretty close. Talking, that receptive language is really emerging, so we're
So,
working on that.
so for those listening, with receptive is like understanding of language. So yeah, you can't. So you really even you learned that with your first son is like you can't expect the kids to talk until they understand what words mean,
Mhm.
things like that. So, um, and with the journey of like, when did you realize that? Let's stay on Klaus to begin with. When did you realize that there might be something um, going on with him?
I mean, almost instantly. I mean, as a newborn, I mean, I was lucky to get an hour and a half of sleep a night because he was just constantly up. Um, I mean, like up every 45 minutes,
Wow.
like a ridiculous amount. And then, like, he would only eat maybe a half ounce to an ounce at a time. So it was just like constant issues with eating and
And I remember
sleeping.
you couldn't hold him, right? To feed him. You had to have him lay and not be touched to give him the bottle.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. He literally would not let us hold him. He hated being touched. So that was another thing. Um, and then it was like around 4 months old when he still wasn't holding his head up. I think
He got
that's around
referred to
when I
birth to three.
yeah, when
Yeah.
I first started talking to Birth to Three. So we got a referral. Good job, buddy. We got a referral for our Birth to Three and to neurology at Gillette. So luckily for me, my doctor took us very serious in our concerns
Okay.
versus some other families have not been so lucky in
Right.
that regard, which I'm sure anyone who has a child with any type of disability has heard. You've got
Yeah.
doctors who believe you and doctors who don't.
Right. It's great when the primary doctors really realize that the parents they're the best expert on their child.
Yeah.
I know it's kind of hard sometimes because there's parents that are overly worried when they don't need to be worried. So I'm sure their doctors are always talking parents off off the shelf like that. So they need to kind of it's important when they really can listen and then the
Yeah.
genetic journey you guys went through, didn't you have to get approved? You did the first basic genetic testing and then had to wait for insurance to approve the next one.
No, so it didn't even jump. So how they had to handle things was kind of crazy. Genetics didn't happen for months. I
Okay.
mean, that's where I personally wanted to start because I
Okay.
always in my heart knew that's where we'd find our answers.
Okay.
But the first thing we did was actually an EEG.
Okay.
So they started with that, and then from there, when that came back clear, which we were lucky it came back clear because with his genetic disorder, a lot of the kids struggle with seizures, which we
Right.
haven't seen any indications yet. So we're very thankful for that. Um, but they, after the EEG, sent us to get an MRI done of his neck and spine to make sure there was nothing being missed there, which that was pretty daunting having your 8-month old put under,
Yeah.
anesthesia to have that done. And then from there, when that came back clear, is when they finally were like, okay, now we'll do
Do the
the
genetics.
genetics testing. And they right off the bat did, they pulled samples from me, Tyler, which is dad, and then Klaus. So,
Okay.
and then when the first basic test went through, then they automatically get approved to do the more intensive
Okay.
one. And the
Okay.
basic one is, I think it's just like the real common
You're
genetic and
right.
chromosomal
Right. Yeah.
abnormalities,
Yeah.
which, oh,
There might be some parents listening that realize or that they've had sometimes it goes through the third tier. I think that's when sometimes parents have to wait months to get it approved from insurance, or maybe it depends on what insurance you have. So I'm so glad that it went so quickly for you. I mean, as quick as it can, you know.
yeah, I was gonna say, it was he didn't get his he didn't get it took about 8 months for us to get a diagnosis for him.
So it didn't happen quick anyways. Yeah, that's right.
No, it did not happen
So
quick.
so can you speak to like how did you handle not knowing what was going on with him, and then how did you feel after the fact, I guess? And I'm sure you had a lot of feels.
I mean, I think it's weird because the diagnosis didn't really change anything. I mean, it was, buddy, I might have to. Can we pause for a minute?
Sure, hold on a second.
I'm gonna quick. Hi, buddy. So I think while looking for the diagnosis, I mean, it's hard because you have all of these things that could, there's like so many could be's. So I
Yeah,
tried to not really think about that until
yeah,
we knew what was going on. I mean, while we were going through it, there was just so much other stuff happening. It's hard to even say how I felt because me and Tyler have talked about this a lot that like Klaus's first year is almost like gone for us. Like
yeah,
we were in such survival mode with
yeah.
like how hard things were with him not sleeping, not eating. I mean, he was constantly crying. I mean, he was constantly upset. I mean, yeah,
Inconsolable, and also he couldn't even hold his head up that whole first year very much, right?
no, he couldn't do. I mean, he couldn't do anything. He couldn't roll. He couldn't do
Right.
anything, and it was just like so much. And we've even talked about how, well, dealing with that, like it's hard for us to even think about like what Otto was doing at that time, which is our older son. It's almost like
Yeah,
we lost that year to just being in like fight or flight constantly. And
yeah,
because we didn't have that diagnosis, I mean, we had no resources besides birth to three.
right.
So, and at that time, we also didn't have Otto's diagnosis. So, I don't know if you remember this, but we were dealing with getting the diagnosis for both of our kids at the same time.
That's right. That's right. So let's talk a little bit more about Otto. So from the very beginning and when you kind of how he was developing and when you started to notice that there might be something going on neurologically.
So, I think it was around, and like full disclosure, like the autism absolutely comes from me, not
Okay.
Tyler. So
Okay.
there were just like signs that I recognized. Like I saw things in him that I saw in myself, but it was probably around like that same 4 month mark, like that 4 to 6 months. So like gross motor wise, Otto has always been like above and beyond.
Okay.
But it was it was like more, he was like absolutely nonverbal. There was hyper, like the hyper focusing he would do. I mean, I remember I could put on Encanto because at that this time I was working from home full time when I
Okay.
just had
Okay.
Auto. And
Okay.
I could put Encanto on for him and he would
So on the
watch.
television, on the
Yeah, and
television. Okay.
yeah, and he would watch. I'm not kidding. At 4 months old, he would watch an entire movie. He would just
Wow.
sit there watching it, totally fine, not upset, just hanging out. And I was like, this is not normal. Like, this
Right.
is right off the bat, like, that is very, like, hyper focusing. And, like, Tyler, I just remember him being like, well, don't project yourself on him. Like, maybe he's just, like, really enthralled with the colors and the music
Yeah.
because he used to love, like, the Disney princess movies, like Encanto,
Sure.
Frozen, Moana, like,
Yeah.
those, a lot of music and stuff like that. And I was like, well, yeah, that also,
Right.
that's something
Right.
else.
Yeah.
Um, but I remember my dad, it was, I can't remember if it was like 6 months or 8 months. He'd be watching those movies because this like kept going for a long time where like that is
Yeah.
what he wanted. He just wanted to watch his
Right.
movies. He wanted to watch the same movies. And like my dad would like call his name while he was watching these movies. And I think they watched him one night while me and Tyler, I think we just had a date night. And my
Yeah.
dad, when he came home, was telling us, he's like, I was screaming, like, I mean, screaming at your son, his name, just trying to get his attention. Like, he started at one level and just kind of kept bringing it
Yeah.
up. And he's like, he never looked at me.
Right.
And I was like, yeah, he gets hyper focused on his movies, and that's that. Um, and that's when my dad was like, well, that's not normal. And I was like, yeah, I know. So, I mean, there was like signs pretty early on. And I think it was when he was, well, let me think here. I think it was when he was 1.5, and he still wasn't talking, is when I got the referral for birth to three for speech.
And
And
how
it
old is
was
Otto now? How old is Otto now?
Otto's 4.5. So him and
4.5.
Klaus are almost 2 years to the day apart.
Okay. Okay.
So as
So you,
Otto's, what?
so you contacted birth to three.
Yep. So we contacted birth to three, and that's when I think it was just before. I'm trying to think. I know they were involved before we had Klaus because I think I was pregnant with Klaus when Jen first started coming.
Yeah. That, yeah, for
So
sure that I know that was the case. Yes.
yeah, so I know, I think it was around 18 months when he wasn't talking, is when I was like, hey, I'm just a little concerned about this. Like, there's zero, because he wasn't saying anything. I think the most
Right.
we could get out of him was like signing more, and he would say, uh oh.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that is where Otto was at. So around when Otto turned 2 is when I had Klaus. And after he turned 2 is when you can start kind of working towards the autism
Okay.
diagnosis. And that was always my inkling, just based on the speech delay, the hyper focus, and just like how he played too, like his rigid play, and
Yeah.
like his need to like sort things. It
Right.
was all, and like what he partook, and like that, like almost obsessive. I know, buddy. Almost that obsessive interest in stuff. I don't want that.
Yeah. And it's great that your dad that you had a strong enough relationship where your dad could be like, that's not typical, or that's, he might not have used the most appropriate words possibly, but
Yeah,
like
that's
because it's hard for parents. And you talked to me about mom goggles. You want to talk about like you always be like saying like, well, I think that Klaus understands like go to your
yeah,
room or he's understanding these things now. But then again, I want to get input from other professionals because it might be my mom goggles. So talk to you about that
yeah,
because I'm sure other parents have had those on and we all do. We all as mother all parents and maybe dad goggles as well, I'm sure.
yeah. So I know, honey. Mom goggles is where you're looking for that progress where it might not actually be there, especially when you
Yeah.
have kids who are developmentally delayed. I mean,
Hmm.
I my parents and like I've had other people where they're like, "Oh, I think Klaus is saying mom." And I'm like, "Well, no, I think he's just crying." Like I don't think he's actually saying anything. He might be enunciating while he's crying, but I don't think he's intentionally saying like mama. It's
Right.
like when kids first start babbling and they say like I'm mom, 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 mom.
Right.
Like, well, sure it sounds like mom, but they're not intentionally saying mom.
Right.
So when it comes to the receptive side of things, sometimes it's like, well, is he understanding or is he just going through the motions and copying me?
Right.
Like,
Right.
is he actually understanding this or do I just think he's understanding it or do I just want him to understand it? When it's
Right.
been 2.5 years, you've been delayed on everything. I mean,
Right.
we didn't even start seeing progress until Klaus was a year and a half old. And that was like
Right.
lifting his head,
Right.
holding
All he
his
would do is stare at
bottle.
his hand. Remember, he just stared at his
Mm-hmm.
hand. And even like you'd go to see medical professionals, they're like, I mean, I've just never seen a child do this for such a long period of time. It's part of development. When you're noticing your hand, you don't realize it's attached to you.
Yeah,
But it went on so long, right?
so long. And I mean, so many things. We've had so many things go on for so long with him. So, when
Yeah.
you're waiting. And it's so weird having like the developmental delays because we don't ever know. I mean, at one point, I didn't know if he would ever hold his own bottle. I didn't know if he'd ever hold his own head up. I didn't know if he'd crawl. I didn't know if he'd walk. I still don't know if he'll ever talk. I don't know if he'll ever eat solids. There's all these things that I don't know. And I think it's hard when you have those because you want them. I mean, you want your child to hit those milestones if they're able to because you just want your child to have what's best for them. You
Right.
know, like everyone wants their child to walk, talk, eat, you know,
Right.
things that some people are like, oh, those are the basics. And it's like, well, you don't want
Not
that.
basics to parents that are probably watching this video,
Right.
right? Yeah.
I don't take anything for granted because I don't know if it's going to come or not. So
Right.
I think when you have those things, like with the receptive language, where I told you, I don't know if it's mom goggles or not. It's like, well, I hope it's like, I want this to be happening. But is it just I
Right.
want it so bad that I think it's happening versus it really happening?
So, I'm wondering if you have people say things like this to you, and I just want you to speak on this, just 'cause I'm sure a lot of parents can relate, but comments like, you're handling this so well,
Oh
and
my gosh.
how
No,
do how do
I
you
can
ever do everything like this? How
I
I could
could
never
never.
do all this.
It's so funny. So I actually have a very dear friend of mine from high school. She was 2 grades below me, but her son also is disabled. So he has autism and he actually has I can't remember what it's called, but he has the child arthritis. I know
Okay, yeah,
there's
JRA, yeah, yeah.
yes. Um so he so me and her talk a lot and we send a
Yeah.
lot of like reels back and forth on Facebook. And she sent one to me the other day that was like things that will trigger any like special needs like caretaker parent, and it had
Mm-hmm.
all of the comments. And I like remember when things were really bad with Klaus and Otto, I had so many people being like, "Oh, they're fine. Like I knew so and so and they didn't talk until they were 5 and there's nothing else wrong with them." And I was like, "Yeah, this is like not that though. Like my kid can't
Right.
hold his own head up and he's a
Right.
year
Yeah.
old. Like
Right.
this isn't the same."
Right.
Like I appreciate you trying to make me feel better, but like that's not helping. And like I love my parents. My parents are so involved, as you know. They're here
Yes.
almost weekly. Um, and they are the ones who have been watching, respectively, both kids through every appointment. I mean, we had so many appointments in
Yeah.
that first year for Klaus, and they were just constantly, no questions, watching Otto for every appointment. So I wasn't having to drag my toddler, my 2 year old with to all of these appointments. And mind you, my parents are disabled themselves. So,
Right.
it was huge for them to do what they did for us. And like, even my dad is guilty of being like, God knew what he was doing when he gave you Klaus because I myself couldn't do it. And he knew you'd have the patience. And it's crazy because, he's like, he can do it. He watches my son all the time, he
Right.
spends time with him. But it's interesting. I don't know. It's weird because it also makes you think about, like, well, you raised me, you
Right.
handled me.
Right.
So
Yeah.
I don't know. It's weird. I think it's hard because it's like a backhanded compliment, is how I take
Right.
those. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, you'd be so pretty if you just did this, if you just cut your hair. Oh, you'd be so
Right.
pretty without glasses, like those kind of
Yes.
compliment. It feels like a backhanded compliment
Yeah.
about my parenting and my kids. It's not, that doesn't feel good.
Right.
And my
Right.
kids, I don't know, I'm with my kids 24/7, almost 365.
Right.
So it's
Right.
like, well, what would you expect me to do?
Right.
You know?
Right. No, and I think it comes from a good place, but like
Yes.
what I always hear like is when I've talked to other parents and have been lucky to have a lot of relationships with different families and walking through the journey as much as I can, but things like they would say when people say that to me, it was like, how do you, I could never do all that. And it's like, well, you could if you had to, like some
Right. I
parents that
don't
have
have a
the G
choice.
tube and they have to wash all the tubing and all the
Mhm.
stuff and like you're getting up all the time. And but it's like, if people meet you, they don't realize how hard your life is and you're, positive person and things, but it's not like they don't really understand, right?
Yeah. And I think, being in the special needs community, you just see, I don't know, it's like weird because it's just like, I just think about how blessed I am. I don't think about how hard things are. That's how I've always looked at it. When we were having talks about Klaus needing a G tube, it's like, well, yeah, that's going to make things harder, but like at least it'll be a way for him to eat.
Right,
You
right.
just,
It takes away the fear of him not getting enough nutrition, so
yes.
that you have been really open about like whatever they need, kind of,
Yeah.
and celebrating the small little progress and then big progress. But yeah, I
Yeah,
was
I
wondering
think,
if there's, oh, go ahead.
I just think like, I get from the outside looking in, people would say, oh, I could never do that. But like, there's always going to be another level to it. And I think that's
Right.
the hard part. I follow a lot of parents and kids on social media, and not necessarily just in like the SLC 6A1 group or just autism. Like, overall, I follow a lot of special needs families.
Mm-hmm.
And, there's a mom I follow. Sorry, I'm like so postpartum, so it's hard to talk about certain things when you think
Oh,
about
I
it.
know.
So I might get like choked
Yes.
up a little bit here, but
Right. Thank you
I
for
follow a mom.
sharing.
Yeah, I follow a mom, and she has two children who were diagnosed after birth, and they're both terminal. Both her kids have a genetic disorder that is terminal. She didn't know that. I can't remember if it's her or the husband who's a carrier
Mm-hmm.
of whatever, but you know. So she's got these two kids she loves more than anything. They're both G tube fed. They both can't walk, they have limited mobility, and she spends all of her time caretaking them. And she has had to sit there and come to terms with that at some point she's going to lose those babies.
Oh,
There's the other mom who I follow still, whose son passed away at the end of last year. And I came out of our room and went to the living room just like sobbing. And Tyler was like, "Oh my God, what is going on?" And I was like,
yeah,
his mom just lost her son. And like, he knew I'd been following the story like so close for years now. And like, I was like almost inconsolable. So it's, when people say, "How do you do this?" It's like, how do I not do this? How lucky
right,
am I? How lucky am I that I get to do this?
right,
That
right,
every
yes,
day isn't me worry. I don't have to worry about my son passing away one
right,
day. There are parents dealing with terminal diagnoses, and my heart just breaks because I can't.
right,
That is where I say I cannot imagine that. But like, you just do it,
right, right,
just like I
right,
just do it. So there's always going to be that level of, to yourself where you're like, I can't imagine, handling that challenge, but you just do it. And the thing I really can't imagine is saying that to a parent.
right,
I can't imagine going up to a parent who has a child with a terminal diagnosis and going, "Oh, I don't know how you're dealing with this. I could never do it." Like,
right,
it just
right,
seems so outlandish to me. So,
yeah,
I think that's really what it is I don't look at it as a challenge. I just look at it as like, how lucky am I that I get to do this? Every single day I get to wake up with my kids. I
right,
don't have to
right,
worry about if I get tomorrow with my kids. I mean, obviously life happens, but if it's a normal day, I know I'm going to wake up with my family. So,
Thank- thanks. So another thing I was thinking that I know that when parents, their first child has a disability, is born with a disability, um, one of the things that they talk about is, well, this is a two-folded discussion, I think, here. So first, when they have this child and it's their first child, and they sometimes have, and that bet it could happen with the second child, but they all of a sudden wasn't what life was expected to be. And if they have more medically complex or involved kids, they feel like they tell me that they don't relate to their friends anymore. That some of their friends don't stay connected with them. Their friends are uncomfortable.
oh
And
yeah,
then,
we've experienced a lot of that.
have you?
Not so much with Otto. So with Otto, I always try and adjust my language because I have a bad habit of being like, "Oh, he just has autism,"
Yeah, right.
um,
Yes.
which everyone's like, okay, but
Right.
he's still dealing. You still have challenges with that, and I do, but it's hard when you've got two kids with disabilities and one is so much more involved. It's
Yes.
easy to be like, well, this
Right.
is this is so much easier.
Right. And he's verbal now. He can tell you what he
Yeah,
needs, what he wants, how he's
too
feeling, if something
verbal.
hurts, those things, those
Now he
important things.
doesn't. Yeah, now he doesn't stop talking. He is in the arguing stage. So,
Yes. Yeah.
but yeah, with him, it wasn't so much because I mean, we didn't have I think the biggest thing was once we started dealing with the physical disabilities is with Klaus. And
Yeah.
like, Klaus is very environmentally peculiar. So
Mhm.
it's near impossible to bring him places. Like, I can't just go to a restaurant with him. Versus when we just
Right.
had Otto, We could go to people's houses, no problem. We could go to restaurants, no problem. We took him to a music festival. I was pregnant with Klaus and we went with my parents to the Outlaw Music Festival to see Willie Nelson,
Right.
Like my
Fun, fun.
18-month-old was just running around. So,
Yeah.
um, you
Yeah.
know, when
So it's
you
so
have
it's
that
not that just the
versus
friends, it's not just the friends that cut you off somewhat, but it's that you can't join in on events
Mhm.
sometimes, so you lose that connection sometimes, right?
Yeah, I think, well, and I mean, like I said, I was drowning Klaus's
Right.
first year. I mean, it went from me being very involved and constantly going all over to like, I can't even leave my house. My kid doesn't sleep. I haven't slept. I mean, when you've only slept an hour and a half and then you've got to go to St. Paul for how many appointments and get back, and you're like, I don't even know what day it is half the time. And
Yeah.
at that time, I was supposed to go back to work, and I never did because I couldn't.
Right.
There was no
Right.
way. So it was like just so many things slowly kept getting cut off. And like while I was drowning in this, like my kid doesn't sleep, which means I don't sleep, and all of these other things, my outreach stopped. I mean, I'm just trying to keep my head above water, let alone,
Right.
you know, checking in on other people. Like I just didn't have it in me. And I can't leave the
Right.
house with this child without him losing it. And he doesn't like
Right.
new places. He doesn't like new people.
Yeah.
He does like, there's so many
Right.
things
Yeah.
encompassing that. So when you have I think it really just showed me what friendships were one-sided more than
Okay.
anything because and it also brought me new friendships, so there is
Right.
a side to it. So a lot of friends who didn't have kids and I won't say all of them because some of my biggest supporters are like child free by choice friends that I have,
Sure. Sure.
which I know not everyone experiences that, but I've got some very good friends who have been heavily involved with my kids who don't have kids of their own and don't plan to. And I have friends
Right.
who do have kids who I don't even talk to anymore. I mean, one of I thought my best friends forever, ride or die for life friends who we've got matching tattoos and everything. I haven't heard from her in a year,
Wow.
like at all, radio silence. So, it's it's interesting how things play out because they won't ever play out how you think they will. And I do have trouble sometimes connecting with people whose kids don't have disabilities, but I feel like the only time I have trouble with that is when there's expectations put on my kids. Like they expect my kids to act like theirs
Right.
versus I have like my very good friend who's got her master's in psych. She's just like, yeah, I think my oldest has ADHD. We probably should work on that. But she's like, whatever you need for your kids, like, we'll figure it out. Bring them over, or I'll
Oh,
come over there. And so I think it's just a level of like Otto's godfather and godmother. They've got three kids technically, but two of them are like teenagers, and the other one
hmm.
is Otto's age. And I remember while we were getting Otto's diagnosis and all of that, they were just like so supportive, even though
Right.
they didn't understand fully, they were still so involved and they have remained involved, you know
Right.
they
Right.
understand what we're going through with Klaus, and they have no problem being like, all right, we'll bring everyone over to you. You can't come here, so we'll come to you. And I think that is the level of understanding that can be hard because I know some people can feel like it's one-sided, but it's like, all right,
Yeah.
well, if you want me to bring my kid over, I can, but he's going to scream bloody murder for the entirety that we're here, and you are not going to actually have any time with me.
Right. Right.
So
How have you advocated for yourself to take care of yourself and ways to help finding people to help you with your kids and your busy life?
I
Like, is
don't
that
even
hard?
know. It's hard. I mean, even now, I would say I'm horrible at advocating for myself. I think I am very blessed to have the partner I do
That's good.
because
Yeah,
Tyler advocates for me. you know,
good.
when there's things, I mean, I remember, so actually, just currently now that I'm not pregnant anymore, one thing I used to district manage 7 tanning salons before leaving the
Wow.
workforce. And that has always been like just something that I really enjoy. It calms me down. Not going to get into the health out of it. I know there's people who are against it for it,
That's,
but for me,
yeah,
it's something
it's
it's a
relaxing.
just time away. It's relaxing. And we recently, so I have a tanning membership, but it's in Stillwater and there's all the construction going on right now. So
Right.
he was like, how much would it cost for you to be able to do that at the place in town? It's not as like fancy as the place I go
Right.
to in Stillwater, because the place in Stillwater has like a massage table and chairs and red light
Yeah.
and tanning and all
Yeah.
these things. So it's like a whole
Right.
thing for me to like go and do and get out of the house. But with the construction and having a newborn, that's not really realistic. So he's like, all right, how much will
Right.
it cost you to do this? Sounds good. Spend the money, don't care, go do that. And we were talking about it in front of my parents when they were over for dinner the other night, and he's like, oh yeah, Rhiannon went and did this, and she got a little burnt this first time because it's been over a year since she's gone. And my dad goes, well, why are you even paying to go tanning anyways? And Tyler was like, it gets her out of the house and she likes to do it. It relaxes her. Like, he said
Good.
that. Like, I
Good.
didn't even need
Good.
to. Like, he interjected and was like,
Right.
no, full stop on this conversation. Like, this is what my wife needs. Like, so she's going
Right.
to go do it. And I
Yes.
think he's always been like very good at being like, what will make you happy? Like, he knows I'm stuck in the house a lot. And so when it comes to like books, there's never a no. I have hundreds of books and I listen to so many audiobooks and buy audiobooks and physical books and Kindle books. And that's just like my thing I can do that keeps my sanity. And that's just something he will never say no to. And it was something that
Yeah.
he was like, hey, if this is like something that'll help you, do it. Like,
Yes. Yes.
so
And then that's good. That's good to have a partner that can advocate for you. Because I know, like, I know there's been times where you've wanted to go to an event and then you had it scheduled to have a caregiver coming through the CLTS waiver and then they canceled
mhm.
on you. Like I think that parents that don't get to leave very much, like those times away are so important and then they fall through and it's probably much more devastating.
It is devastating. And, I think the thing is that me and Tyler have learned, and this isn't a diss on anyone, because I mean, some of the times we've had people cancel is for medical reasons and this and that,
Sure,
but a
sure.
lot of
Yeah,
the stuff that we plan is separate. So unfortunately, I don't get a lot of time one on one with my husband, but we make it a priority to make sure that we can both still get out. So, like,
yeah.
last 2 weekends ago was Tyler's birthday, and we just bought all that land up north. So I said, go. He went with a bunch of his friends and he left for 3 days. Well, I have a newborn and my two special needs kids. I went, go on, go
Right.
have fun. And, hunting is a big thing for him. So, all hunting season, go. Whatever weekend you want to go, go. Like, I don't question it. And respectively, I have, gosh, I think 5 concerts throughout the summer that I'm going to be going to without him. That he's like, go, this is what brings you joy. Go see these artists with your friends. Go have fun. Like, go do your things. So I think
Yeah.
I've said this time and time again, and I know obviously you just figure it out, you just do it because that's what we do as parents. We just do it. But like, I
Right.
personally don't know how I would have made it through all of this without him. So
Right.
when I hear of, parents who are single parents dealing with the same type of things on their own. And I'm like, oh, man, just puts it into perspective how blessed I feel that I have a supportive partner, because there are the main mom who has started, SLC 6A1 Connect, which is the thing that gets all the families together. Her story is not as great as mine. What is the statistic? Like 85% of couples end up splitting up and divorcing of special needs kids. Like,
It's
it's
really high. It's
insane.
really
It is
high.
so high. And I remember her talking about her story and how, she was going through the same exact stuff as I was, only her husband at the time was terrible and not helpful and causing things to be harder on her. And she ended up divorcing him. And she's like, my life got easier when I didn't have to worry about him anymore. And it's like,
Right.
yeah, I bet. I mean, when you've got someone who's just making your life miserable and not partaking or helping, it's a chore to be around them.
Yeah.
So I think a huge thing for me is having someone who can advocate for me, because I'm spending so much time advocating for my kids.
Yeah.
You know,
Right.
it's
Right.
hard. It's hard to like pull yourself out of, it's hard to be selfish sometimes.
Right. Right. But you're not being selfish. You need to learn, you're right, that
I know.
I need to take care of myself, even if it's just being able to, just have 5 minutes to
Mhm.
drink your coffee in the morning or something.
Right. Oh,
Right.
don't I know
Sit
it?
down.
That's my
So
life
that,
right now.
yeah, that brings me to the question that a lot of families, when they have their first or their second, child with a disability, and then they may want to have another child, but they're really wondering, like, can I handle it? Can I do that? And especially the families I've worked with when their first child has a diagnosis like Down syndrome, autism, they're just like, can I handle it? And my comment is always like, usually it can be really good for those children to have another child, because then they kind of motivates them to work on things. Sometimes the kids, for example, kids with Down syndrome, sometimes that baby starts catching up a little bit and motivating each other and things. But I just wanted to, since you do have a newborn, and
Yeah.
it's
I
a lot,
think,
right? And I'm sure there are people like, even if your kids don't have special needs, your first two, people are like, whoa, once you go to three, it's a lot. But some people say going from two to three is not as hard. I don't know. I just have one.
I
But
think,
anyways, how did you make that decision, and were you worried, or
I mean,
if you don't
so
mind sharing?
it didn't come lightly. I can tell you that. Like, there was a lot of things I mean, so we always talked about having we always knew we wanted more kids, but
Okay.
after having Klaus, I think it was after his diagnosis that was when we really started talking, and so we're
Yeah.
talking. Klaus is one at this point, and we always wanted more kids after him, but we kind of had to sit down and go, okay, well, we know it's nothing we carry. So that was the first thing that needed to be.
Because it
Because
was a
if it was,
mutation, right? It
yeah,
just happened. Yeah.
yeah. So none of it was hereditary from either of us. It was a spontaneous genetic mutation.
Yeah.
And, because we had our genes ran, we knew there was nothing else that could possibly come hereditary from either of us. So that was a huge thing for us, because in our opinion, it wouldn't be fair to play that chance game for another child if we were carriers.
Sure.
And I know a lot of stuff is a 50-50 chance, and that's just a choice, parents have to make for themselves.
Sure.
And so for us, that was just something that needed to be clarified, that we couldn't possibly give this to another child. That was like step one. Okay, we don't have anything. What do we need to see? And I think a lot of it was because we already had Otto, and we've talked about this, that if Klaus was our first, I don't know if we'd have more kids, but we already
Mhm.
had Otto. So we were
Right.
like, all right, well, we're already here.
Right.
But there was some things we needed to see that would make it so we knew we could bring on another child. So for Tyler, his thing was he needs to be able to hold a bottle because that's that independent eating. That's how do you how do you bottle feed two kids at once? I mean, I know people do it with twins, but like when you're trying to bottle
Right.
feed a toddler, it's a different story. And I can tell you
Right.
that because I was bottle feeding my toddler before he learned to
Yes.
hold his own. Um, yeah, you hold a bottle for 18 months and it changes your
Yeah.
perspective on, oh, it's not a big deal.
Right. Yes.
Um, and mine was I needed some sort of mobility, even if it was just crawling, that would be enough for me because I just couldn't handle, full physical caretaking plus having a newborn. And I
Right.
mean, it's true because I've got a Velcro baby here for my third who I can't set him down unless he's napping. So I can't imagine if I was navigating that plus having to help Klaus move everywhere. So for
Right.
us, those were our two things that we needed to see. And once we saw those, is when we were like, okay, can we mentally handle this? So once those physical things came through, it was a matter of can we mentally handle it? And we had to have the conversation like, all right, well, two of our kids already have autism. The likelihood of the third having it is high. Um, can we handle that? Can we
Yeah.
deal with whatever might come with that? Can we deal with the possibility of another disabled child, who might have high needs? And that those were just conversations we had to have for our personal capacity. And I can't make that call for anyone else. We made
Right.
the call for us that we could handle it. And so we opted to have a third. And I'm very happy we did. We're in the trenches right now with having a newborn and two special needs kids who are having a little bit tough time adjusting, but I think more so Klaus is dealing with teething. So because he's
Yes.
actually
Yeah.
pretty happy. He's actually doing better now than he was while I was pregnant. So
Okay. Well, that's good news. That's good
yeah,
news.
but
There's kind of I have a closing question, but then my before that, one more question, unless there's something else you wanted to share, is how do you navigate all the appointments that you had to go to or have to go to, and how do you prioritize which you like, which you don't go to, or maybe because I think we've talked about like sometimes like with the neurologist, they'll be like, come back every 6 months, and then you're like, well, do I really need, so we kind of talked about that, and you've understood those kind of things, or
yeah,
figuring out like which therapies, or maybe we don't have to have, go on as long, or maybe we won't drive to the cities, or any of that. So
I think it's just child to child what works best for them, and you start to figure it out. If there's been no major changes, I mean, I can't at 36 weeks pregnant when Klaus was in that mood where like I had to hold him the entire time we were not in the house and like my sciatic nerve was going crazy and if I had to hold him through an appointment, I mean, it was leaving me immobile basically for days after because I was in so
oh,
much pain and I had to make the call like, all right, well, what matters more, a follow up where we're not seeing any major changes yet or me being able to caretake for both my kids when I'm at home. And
yeah,
so I put off all of those appointments and I am going to reschedule them. They'll be behind, but will they be behind? I mean, they're follow
right,
ups. It's
right,
not like I need to do these. Like I did his complex care appointment. I fought through that with him because of the behavioral thing that we were dealing with for so many months where I had to hold him and he would just scream 24/7. I mean, you could hear him screaming at St. Croix therapy for 2 hours straight
wow,
throughout the school year. And he loves Cole. He loves Kara.
yeah,
But we were leaving. It
right,
was if we left the house, he was screaming the entire time. And
wow.
so I went to the complex care appointment to be like, what can I do for this? And unfortunately, the answer I got was wait it out. you know, Behavioral, everything looks fine. So And luckily he is moving past it, but you just have to make the right call for yourself and your family. I mean, I feel like once you're in it, you kind of have a better idea of like, is this pertinent or can it wait? Like, I will, like, Dr. Gormley is probably going to lose it once I reschedule that PMR appointment for him
Oh yeah,
because the last time he saw him, he was just starting to crawl, you know,
right, right.
and stand assisted. He wasn't pulling up on things. I think maybe he had just started pulling up on things. And I was like, "Are you going to show
Right,
off?" And he didn't. But
right.
now, I mean, he's going to see him and be like, "Who is this kid?"
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
But he has been one of our biggest advocates. Like, I think from almost jump, he has said, "I bet he walks." And I was like,
Uh,
yeah, okay, if you say,
yeah,
so
yeah. The
they're
physical
just,
medicine and rehab doctors are really, I think a lot of times the most important doctor for a lot of families with kids with special needs because they kind of help you kind of group it all together, you know.
yeah.
And so some families are sometimes I find families they're like, oh, I didn't know about that doctor, you know, and they go to neurology, they
Oh,
go to orthopedics, and I always recommend that doctor because it really does help you look through things.
oh yeah, I
I
can't
guess
imagine.
I
He
guess
was the
the last
worst.
the last question, and I appreciate you taking your time. I'm glad you have care for the two older kids, and then the baby finally fell
Yes.
asleep. So, but I guess is there anything that you were hoping that we would talk about that you wanted to bring up? And if not, if, is there something that you'd want to have a takeaway message from today's conversations for other families that will be watching this on the
I
recording?
think the biggest thing is don't be afraid to let people. So we talked about holding on to friendships and relationships. And I think the biggest
Yeah.
thing is don't be afraid to let some of those go because they
Okay.
will be replaced with better ones. I
Yeah.
mean, the connections I have made, I mean, our respite gal upstairs is the daughter of one of my mom friends from the clinic, you know?
Yeah.
So, I mean, you make these relationships and these connections, and it just kind of snowballs from there what your support system looks like, what your community looks like. They talk about it takes a village, and when you have special needs kids, like that matters more than ever. Like everyone needs a village, but when you've got kids who take extra care, that village matters all the more. And
Yeah.
sometimes the people you already have in your life aren't going to be your village. And like, that's okay. Me and Tyler have had to have that conversation where we're like, we thought these people were so important and they haven't shown up for us at all. And meanwhile, I mean, the people we have in our lives, I mean, just for an example, one of Bjorn, our newborn, that's our newborn's name. I don't think I even mentioned that while we were talking about Otto and Klaus, but when Bjorn, one of his godparents drove 4 hours one way to come spend 2 hours with him and meet him after birth and drove 4 hours back that like I said 2 hours later. These are the people
Oh, wow.
who like which we never would have expected him to do that, and we even told him we're like you can wait and come when like you can spend the night and like have more time, and he's
Yeah.
like no, I want to, like this is something I want to do. And it's those kind of people that you want to make sure in your circle, people who don't make you feel like a bother or a burden, and people who you don't feel like you have to fight tooth and nail to keep in contact with. I mean, I have some friends. My friend, I told you we send reels back and forth about like special needs
Yeah.
humor and autism mom humor, and like
Yeah.
me and her both like found out through our children's diagnoses that we have autism. So, we've
Right.
been on that journey together ourselves, as girls born in the 90s who kind of got shoved under with that
Oh, it's still
diagnosis.
happening, unfortunately, for
So
girls.
I know, I
Way
know.
better than it used to be, for sure.
It is better
Yeah.
than it used to be, but it's still hard. But me and her will sometimes just not talk for 2 months and just send reels back and forth, or if we have
Yeah.
life come up, we'll just not talk for a week or two and then be like, hey, I'm alive. And
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
having friends who are okay with that, like distance,
Yeah.
I can't have intense high needs friendships because I'm already dealing with intense high needs children. I don't have
Right.
time to cater to a very high needs friendship. So like having those friendships that are like organic and natural and like not stressful is so important. And a lot of times you're going to find that in parents who are going through similar things as you, maybe their kids aren't dealing with the exact same thing your kid is, and that's okay. They'll still understand.
Right.
So,
Right. I mean, there's so much, there's social media, like there's so much good and so much bad, but it has helped so many families connect with other families too.
yeah,
I rem I remember a story when my daughter was really sick and she was in the hospital for 3 months straight. And I thought I was in a Facebook group with like other parents of kids with the diagnosis that she had. And so I just kind of let out like, oh my gosh, I just like hardly can, like, I can't talk to anyone at work. They're asking me, like, people are like, how's Rachel doing? I'd be like, have you read Caring Bridge? Because I can't talk about it. Like, like
yeah,
I just, and so I was going on, and then like someone at work was like, hey, Kiki, or some friend of mine texted me like, I think you posted something that you didn't mean to post in your regular Facebook page, because you can't share a lot of that stuff with
yeah.
people that don't get it, right?
Hmm.
And so I quickly switched it. I was actually, that's when I joined Facebook, was when my daughter was so sick, because I was wanting to share information, but then I realized, okay, there's other ways to do that, but having that support from other people. So we really
Yeah,
appreciate you doing this talk for us today, especially with how busy you are, but being vulnerable enough to share. My plan is to start interviewing a lot more parents, because I think different, and it's like once you've interviewed a mom of a child with autism, then you've interviewed one mom with autism, right? With the
yeah.
child with autism, because each kid is different, each lived experience.
Oh,
So
for
I'm
sure.
really thanks for starting this off for us. So
Yeah.
thank you
If you
so
ever need
much.
me to, I'm more than happy to come back. I mean, you know me, I'm
I
pretty open. So,
appreciate it. I appreciate it. Thank you so much.